So with the Fed, you've got the retail sales numbers which surprised slightly to the upside. Is that going to be enough to get them to pull the trigger this week, though, do you think, on a second hike?
No, I don't think that it's really going to be enough for them to pull the trigger. What they had said going in after the April meeting was that they were looking for that bounce in the second quarter, and certainly the retail sales confirm that we're going to have a bounce in consumer spending in the second quarter. But the other two conditions were inflation making progress towards the mandate. That one is certainly satisfied, but obviously the big problem out there is the May jobs report, which really comes in underneath their hurdle that they had set out there for continued strength in the labor market. I think they're going to be on hold and wait to see what happens with the next jobs report to make sure that the labor market really isn't turning south.
Okay, so Kathy, that lousy May jobs report, we need at least, we were talking about this offline a couple of seconds ago, we need two sets of data, two payroll reports in order to determine whether that May report was an aberration or, a trend.
I think so, Martin. I think that we need to see basically, two non-farm payrolls reports for the Federal Reserve to be convinced that we got momentum sustained in the recovery for the labor market in order to pull the trigger. Okay. The question I have for Luke really is, I think no rate hike in June is a given at this stage. So in terms of telegraphing what they will do in July, how clear do you think Yellen will be? Do you think she's going to stick to her guns and suggest the door is open, or is she going to backpedal a little bit like she did last Monday when she refrained from saying that the rates could be increased in a few considerable months?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it's really the big question out there is how much do they want to communicate a July hike? And clearly they don't know what they're necessarily going to be doing in July, but I think that they need to sort of communicate that they're leaving that option open for them, because as you say, if the May jobs report was simply an aberration and job growth picks up, and especially if the wage growth continues to move up, then they've sort of met all of the conditions that they laid out for themselves to start hiking rates again. And I don't think they want to be in a position where they need to wait until September if the data turns very quickly on the job side. So what I think we should really look for is a careful assessment of the GDP growth and the spending data that's coming in. There's going to be a fairly positive take on the inflation data, and I would expect her to communicate that they're going to be looking at the labor market data very closely. And in addition to the jobs report being weak, it's really the only indicator for the labor market that we have out there that is so weak. Yeah. When we look at the job openings, when you look at unemployment claims, all of the other indicators are sort of saying that this jobs report is going to end up being an aberration. But of course, you don't know until the next release.